Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
All right, put your hands together for our next speaker, Tony. All right, my man.
Good evening, my name is Tony and I'm a real alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. I'm one of these alcoholics that shouldn't be standing here. And God, I love Karen. I remember hearing her talk. Super glue. In any event. Oh man. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. If you're an alcoholic of my variety, you truly have a lot to be thankful for if you're halfway sane today. See, I was born in Beverly Hills, a rich white kid. Then I started drinking and shit went downhill. You know, I got sober somewhere between October the 11th of October the 20th, 1981. And I got sober through a series of coincidences, and I've heard that a coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. You know, when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I was just a hip, slick, and cool drug addict. The last thing I wanted to do was be an alcoholic. But I'm one of these alcoholics that caught alcoholism in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the way you catch alcoholism is through your ears. And I'm going to tell you what the last 6 months of my drinking and using was all about. Basically, it was come to walk out of the closet that I was living in. And when I walked out of the closet, I would stand in the middle of my bedroom. I'd look out the window, I'd see people on their way to work, I'd see kids on their way to school. And I'd say to myself the same thing every day: why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? I weighed 146 pounds, I suffered from malnutrition, dehydration. Had a disease I called the window disease. The window disease meant that every 5 minutes I had to run to the window and see who was out there. Because somebody was out there, I have no idea who it was, but generally it had an initial, you know, like DEA, CIA, FBI, LAPD, BHPD. But I never caught them. But they was there, and they was real to me then as you are to me tonight. Not only did I have that disease, I had the disease of alcoholism and didn't even know it. You know, if you told me I was sick and crazy, I'd have said, yes, I'm a little crazy because you don't understand, I'm a Vietnam vet. I said, I'm a little crazy because you don't know where I came from. If you came from where I came from and done the things that I've done, you'd be a little sick and crazy too. If you came from the family I came from, or you grew up where I grew from, you'd be a little sick and crazy too. You know, I come from a single parent family. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and you know, my first drink was at 12 years old. You know, and I tell you the reason I took that drink is because I just wanted to be a man. The same day I took that drink, I smoked my first doobie. 6 months later, my mother had me incarcerated as an incorrigible child. My mother had me incarcerated as an incorrigible child. She took me to jail. And I can tell you right then, on that day, I made a decision. One of those decisions based on self, and that decision was nobody will ever hurt me again ever as long as I live. I remember walking in that juvenile facility, I wanted to cry like a baby, but a man never cries, and so I just told my mother to get out of my life, leave me alone, and I walked in that facility. You know, and for this alcoholic, what happens is that I was as afraid as I've ever been in my life. But I wouldn't tell anybody because a man never shows fear. You know, and that was just the first of many incidents in my life where a man never shows fear, and I just couldn't tell it. And I'm one of these alcoholics that hid it by taking a drink, taking a pill, smoking a joint, doing a little non-habit-forming cocaine. Sorry, I know this is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, but that's the way it was for me. You know, I'm a Vietnam vet. I did 3 tours of Vietnam. You know, and I ended up after the Army, and I was in the Army for 8 years, 11 months, 22 days, and 4 hours. And I did things that I'm not proud of. And I saw things that a man shouldn't see. And I came home a hurt, broken, desperate person. The thing that helped me get through those feelings was the right combination of drugs and alcohol. You know, but Vietnam didn't make me a drug addict. It didn't make me an alcoholic. You know, when I came to those mornings, I would say the same thing. Why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? Why can't I just be like everybody else? And I'd stop for a couple of hours or maybe even 30 minutes. But then I'd say the same thing. F it. You know, I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm a man. Next thing you know, I drink a beer, smoke a joint, and I'm back in that closet again, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, in the last couple of weeks of my drinking and using, I'm in that closet with a gun in my mouth. And I just wanted to die. You know, and I can't tell you about the feelings I had at that time, but basically the book describes them as pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Those are feelings I never want to feel again as long as I live. If I never feel those feelings again, you know, I've had a good day. And to this day, for the last 20 years, I have not felt those feelings. But my days are always the same day. You know, and like I said, I got to Alcoholics Anonymous through a series of coincidences and sort of misunderstandings. I have his twin sister, and my twin sister called me one day and said, Tony, we're going to pray for you. And she said, we're going to pray for you because you need prayer. And I told her to take her prayers and put them where the sun doesn't shine. And I told her there is no God because a person like me cannot believe in anything that would allow me to be the way I was. You know, and in retrospect, I got to tell you, I got to this program through the prayers and good wishes of people that cared for me. You know, and what happened the next couple of days can best be described as a series of coincidences. And again, a coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. I had this neighbor that lived across the street from me. And I hated this woman. I just hated her. I hated her because she called the cops on me a couple of times. Now, she called the cops on me once because my girlfriend and I were like fighting in the middle of the street. And I swear my girlfriend was beating me with this umbrella. And this woman called the cops on me. And the second time she called the cops on me, it's because one night I looked out in my backyard and there were these Vietnamese sitting in the trees. Now, I have no idea how these Vietnamese got to Beverly Hills. But all I know is I'm a combat veteran, and I was armed. And so I kind of crawled through the house, jumped out the back door, and shot up the trees. And, you know, like I say, my neighbor said I killed 7 leaves that night. And, you know, and she called the cops. And, you know, Beverly Hills cops came, took my weapon, told me to sleep it off. You know, I was blessed. I didn't even know it. But I hated this woman, and there was something really strange about her. You know, I thought she was a hooker because she would leave her house every night about 6:30 or 7 o'clock. It wouldn't come back to about 11 o'clock every night. So I knew there was something strange. And she had this sort of culty-like bumper sticker Something about keep coming back or something like that. But a couple of days after my twin sister talked about praying for me, I came to one more day. I came out of that closet. I came out of there with that gun. And for some reason, I decided to walk outside of my house. As I was walking outside of my house, here was this woman walking her dog. And now she looked at me. Now I got to tell you, you know, I weighed 136 pounds. I was malnourished. I was, you know, looked like a survivor from a Holocaust or something. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" And I looked her straight in the eye and told her I'd been sick. And she looked me in the eye and said, "You look like you're a drug addict." And I looked in the eye and I said, "I am a drug addict." And I said, "How'd you know?" And she said, "Because I'm a drug addict too." And then I said the most wonderful thing. I said, "Do you have any drugs?" And she said, "No, I don't have any drugs." She said, "I haven't had to do any drugs in over 9 years." And I said, "How'd you do that?" She said, "I'm a sober member of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous." I said, "Oh yeah, AA." You see, I knew about AA because my girlfriend at the time had me check myself into a program. And I checked myself into a program, and they told me I had to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I said, "You don't understand, I'm not an alcoholic." And they said, "Well, if you stay in this program, you got to go to these meetings." And this was a year before this woman told me about AA. And I said, "Okay, I'm going to leave the program." And I don't know about you, but I stayed clean and sober for 2 weeks on my own, proving to me beyond a shadow of doubt I did not need any A&A. And I could stay clean and sober anytime I wanted to, except I couldn't. I really couldn't. So she told me she was in A&A, and then she asked me the stupidest question anybody could ever ask me. She said, "Would you like to go to a meeting tonight?" And I said, "Nope, I'm busy tonight." And the truth of the matter was I was busy, back in the closet, gun in the mouth, gonna shoot myself, pitiful and incomprehensible moralization, pass out, come to, stand in the middle of the bedroom, think about it, da-da-da-da-da. One more time, another time, and another time. Every day was the same day. But something magical started happening, and I didn't even know the magic was happening. And that was, this woman started coming to my house every day. She would walk across the street and she'd bring me some food. She'd bring me sandwiches or cookies or cakes or something to eat every day. And every day she'd watch me and make sure I ate the food. And when I finished eating the food, she'd say, "I'm going to a meeting tonight. Would you like to go?" And every day I'd say, "No, can't go. Busy today. Things to do." You know, back in the closet, gun in the mouth, gonna kill myself, pass out, come to, what's wrong with me, why can't I stop? And one day, I read an article in Playboy magazine. True story. An article. And this article said, and it was talking about addiction, and it said, if you have some type of aberrant behavior that you wish to stop, that you have a 50% better chance of stopping on a significant day in your life than any other time. And my birthday was coming up, so I figured, okay, I'll stop on my birthday. So when that woman came the next day, I told her my plan. I said, I don't need to go to A&A. My birthday's coming up. I'm going to stop on my birthday. She said, "When's your birthday?" I said, "My birthday is October 11th. She said, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" She said, "That's my birthday too." I said, "Really? What do you want for a birthday present?" You know what she said? "I want you to attend a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous." October 11th, 1981, I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thinking it was other than going to a meeting, I knew the real reason she'd be coming across that street. You know, it was a date. It was my birthday, and I don't know about anybody here, but October is Tony Fest. So I got a little stoned before I went to the meeting. And at that meeting, 3 very significant things happened. The first of which is that the person who I thought was the worst drug addict alcoholic I've ever met in my life was at that meeting. And he was fresh, clean, and claimed he had 30 days sober. Now, I have keen alcoholic thinking, so I know what's going on. I know that this woman had gone out, found this guy, paid him $50, and brought him to that meeting. Second thing that happened, the speaker that night was a guy that I'd been in youth authority with, a guy who I knew had gone on to San Quentin, and I knew that that was a lie, that he was in that room that night. And I knew what had happened. She had gone out, found him, paid him $100 to be in the room that night. And the third thing and the most significant thing that happened that night is she gave me a birthday present. The birthday present she gave me was a book entitled Alcoholics Anonymous. When she gave me that book, she said, "Tony, you may or you may not be an alcoholic." She said, "Alcoholism is a self-diagnosed disease, and only you can determine if you're an alcoholic." She said, "You may read this book and replace the word alcohol with anything you like. Cocaine, freebase at that time, weed, heroin, it doesn't matter." She said, "If you read anything in this book that you identify with, then there's a possibility that you are an alcoholic. And if there's a possibility you are an alcoholic and you wish to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, then Alcoholics Anonymous offers a proven program of recovery." And she said it again. She said, "If you are an alcoholic and you wish to recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, then Alcoholics Anonymous offers a proven program of recovery." You know, she gave me the book, went to the meeting. Now, what I didn't know is at that meeting, I heard the music of Alcoholics Anonymous. The music of Alcoholics Anonymous is the laughter of identification. But I heard that. And she gave me the program when she gave me the book. She took me home and she stopped coming to see me. You see, because in hindsight, she'd worked the perfect program, the perfect 12-step. I'd like to tell you I got sober that night, but you know, like I said, October is Tony Fest. So I threw the book in the corner, went back in the closet, did my thing, came to one more day, somewhere between October 11th and October 20th of 1981. I came to that day, and when I came to, something happened. I decided to do something different. I don't know if they told you this, if you knew, but the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is designed to make you do something different. And the only different thing I did that day was I decided to leave my house and go to the beach. When I went to the beach, I'm one of these sort of alcoholics that take stuff with them when they go somewhere. So I needed a book to read. I grabbed a blue book that was in the corner. I took some weed. I took a 6-pack of beer, a little non-habit forming cocaine, a couple of Quaaludes, and I went to the beach to figure out my life. I was sitting at the beach. I was smoking a doobie, drinking a beer. I dropped 2 Quaaludes. I just took just a little 1-in-1 of that blow, and I had a spiritual experience. I started reading that book I had with me. That book was Alcoholics Anonymous. And the first couple of chapters did absolutely nothing for me. Then what happened is I got to that chapter 3. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Oh, here it is. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he's bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is a great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it to the gates of insanity and death. Many pursue it to the gates of insanity and death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. Then it goes on to talk about we are like men who've lost their legs, we never grow new ones. There doesn't seem to be any relief for the problem drinker, and talks about all the methods we tried to prove we could drink like our fellows ad infinitum. But what really got me in this chapter, there's a story in there about a jaywalker, about a guy that has this penchant for walking in front of moving vehicles, you know, and he starts really light, like with a tricycle or a bicycle, and, you know, gets a scrape on his arm or something, moves up to, you know, motorcycles, and next thing you know, it's automobiles, and then it's a train. And this guy dies, and I identified with the jaywalker. And then the next chapter, the chapter the agnostic. Now, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything, because the one thing I'd ever believed in was me, and I'd let myself down. But in this chapter, there's this one sentence that caught my eye. It said, deep down inside of every man, woman, and child is the idea of God, however faint. And it said, all you have to have is willingness. I had no willingness, but that gave me a glimmer of hope. If you're new here tonight, that's what we sell in Alcoholics Anonymous. We sell you hope. And I read that book, and what happened for this alcoholic is that I had a spiritual experience. I had a spiritual experience of the sudden kind. And immediately got up from that beach and went back to this woman, and I asked her what to do and what had happened. And she looked at me and she said, you got to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, no, no, no. She says, yes. She says, something has happened, and for you to maintain this, you got to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And she says, as a matter of fact, you got to go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Then she looked at me again. She said, no, you got to go to 365 meetings in 365 days. And she said, if you don't like it, we'll give you your misery back. I caught that. So I started going to these meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm going to tell you, I was not an alcoholic coming to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't believe I was an alcoholic. I just had a serious problem, a few misunderstandings, bad breaks, and man, if I could just stop doing that non-habit-forming cocaine. And what happened is I stayed here long enough to catch alcoholism. You know, the way I caught alcoholism is one night, I was about 60 days off of everything, and I went to a meeting, and there was this little short black guy named Milton M. speaking. And Milton said, my name is Milton M., and I don't eat watermelon. He said, the reason I don't eat watermelon is because I want anybody to know I'm black. Now, in my family, we were not allowed to eat watermelon in public. And I thought this guy knew that. You see, because I had a secret that I hadn't told anybody. I was like 60 days off of everything, and I was still paranoid. I still believed I was being followed. I could hear voices coming out of the walls. They were coming out of the ceiling and out of the floors. And I hadn't told anybody that. So I figured this guy must have been reading my mail. So after the meeting, I walked up to him and I asked him, I said, like, how did you know this thing about the watermelon? And he told me, he said, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. The minute you're willing to listen for the similarities and not the differences, you'll say the words, me too. He said, if you need help, here's my number, call me. You know, and I went home that night, and I got to tell you that I called that man. And what I believe for this alcoholic was that was my introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous, for real. Because what happened is the minute I became willing to allow somebody else to give me direction, the minute I was willing to ask for help, the help came. Now, I didn't want him to be my sponsor or anything. I just wanted to know about how to get rid of the voices. So I called him up. I go, Milton, this is Tony. I'm hearing these voices, and they're coming out of the, out of the ceiling, out of the sides of the walls and the floor. They're driving me crazy. I don't know what to do. What should I do? He told me what to do. Now, he told me what to do. But what's even more important is I got up the next morning and I did what he told me to do. What he told me to do was this. When I woke up the next morning, I said, listen, you guys. I said, you may or you may not know this, but I am now a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And would you like to go to a meeting today? And I haven't heard a voice since. And you know what happened is that guy became my sponsor, and he's still my sponsor today. And what he told me in my first 6 months of sobriety, and what I learned those first 6 months of sobriety, I've not learned anything new since. He told me it only takes 3 things to get this program. He told me that the most important thing I do every day is to stay sober and be of service to God and my fellow man. He told me that the most important thing I need to know is that there is a God and I'm not him. I told him I didn't believe in God. He said, you don't have to believe, you just got to believe. I believe. And I believed he believed. I believed he believed. Tell you a couple of highlights of my sobriety. When I was 4 years sober, I had a stroke that left me paralyzed on my entire left side. That's because I was working so hard to get it all back. I'm one of these alcoholics that lost it all. And I worked hard to get it back, and I worked myself into a state of bad health. And this stroke left me paralyzed, and I was in a hospital ward, and I remember this nurse waking me up and going, Tony, who are these people? It was a bunch of you people from Alcoholics Anonymous came to visit me. And you know how pushy you guys can get. And they wouldn't let them in my room. So these people decided to have a meeting in the alcove outside the ward. And about 30 minutes later, I hear this Lord's Prayer. And it resonates through this ward like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Now everybody thinks I'm some type of Jesus freak. But what happened is I regained the use of all my limbs. And I came to believe. I came to believe in a power greater than myself. That's the power of the love of one alcoholic for another. I came to believe in the group of Alcoholics Anonymous, GOD, group of drunks, as my higher power. And I got to tell you that my mother, who had me incarcerated, I hated her guts. I wanted nothing to do with her. In the last years of her life, I went to stay with her and treat and help her. And she faced cancer and faced death. And she became my best friend. And I made peace with her. Got to tell you that I had an issue with being a Vietnam vet. And about 7 or 8 years ago, they had a coming home parade for Vietnam veterans. And a bunch of guys from the Pacific group and allowed me to march with them. And we had this sign that said, Sober Veterans of L.A. And at the end of this little march thing, we had this huge meeting, and I got to come home and be free. I got to tell you that I'm a guy that can't get out of the closet, you know what I mean? I'm a guy that's sitting there with a gun in his mouth. I'm a guy that wants to die because I don't know how to live. And my sponsor said, all I got to do is 3 things, and I got to have a life that I could never dreamed of. You know, I'm telling you what those 3 things are. Those 3 things are to clean house, trust God, and be of service. Clean house, trust God, and be of service. And how do you do those things? They're in the steps of this program. 12 steps. They're designed to teach you to clean house, trust God, and be of service. And the minute I started doing those things, my life began to change. You know, in these last 23 years, I got to tell you that, you know, it's been good, it's been bad, it's been good, it's been bad, it's been bad, it's been good, it's been great, it's been not so great. But I've learned to live my life. I learned to live it one day at a time. I've learned to live it sober. Oh yeah, and then one thing I learned more than anything. I learned the one thing I've been searching for all my life. And that was to be a man that I was. That I was a man. That a man is measured by his dignity, his pride, his honesty, his trustworthiness, and his ability to be sensitive to the needs of others, and to take responsibility for his own actions. Those are things I never knew before. You know, and I found all this out in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, my life is all about change. It's about changing and taking chances. You know, I've been living in Indianapolis, Indiana. Me and Ron Artest. No, not a joke. And you know, it's a little different. but it's all the same. You know, it's all the same. You know, the greatest gift I have in my life is my sobriety. Because without my sobriety, I don't have sanity, I don't have God, I don't have anything else in my life. And believe me, I have a great life. I have a great life. For a guy that can't get out of the closet, I travel the world. You know, I know people, I mean, I have had dinner with Nelson Mandela. I've been in Buckingham Palace and watched one of my sober friends get knighted. I mean, God, I can't get out of the closet, you understand? I can't get out of the closet. Today my life is good. I am thankful, I am grateful, and thank you for AA.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.